Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome to a new series in Farming Simulator 19. If you've been watching my Factorio videos on the channel before, then you are in for something a little bit different. And if you've never seen my channel before, then welcome. I hope you enjoy it. If you're interested in another game besides Farming Simulator, check out Factorio. It's awesome. I have close to 1,500 hours on that game. But I've also been playing Farming Simulator quite a lot since Farming Simulator 15. Between 15 and 17, I've got a little over 1,000 hours altogether, I would say. Played it quite a bit, and I'm just now getting into 19. 19 was just released about a week ago, but I was traveling at the time, so this is the first time that I'm really getting to spend some time with it. I've got about 10 hours on it so far, just trying different things and experimenting with the game and getting my controls set up. I am using the SciTech wheel and side panel that I've had for a couple of years. I'm also using Track IR for the camera movement inside the cab. I'm not sure how well Track IR is going to come across on a YouTube video. My concern is that it might be a little too wiggly and cause some of you to get motion sickness. I hope that's not the case, but if it is, let me know, and I can always switch it off and just use the standard camera controls. All right, well, let's get started. As far as mods go, there aren't too many mods out yet, but so far I've downloaded all the mods provided by Giants. I'm playing the pre-order edition, which comes with the Mahindra Retriever, I think it's called. But it doesn't come with any other special vehicles besides that. All right, so I've got a few saves here that I've been messing around with. So let me delete number 2, and this will be our new save game. Now we've got 3 modes to choose from. New Farmer replaces what previously was easy mode. You start with all the farm buildings and some starting equipment and not a lot of money. And the sale prices of the crops are a lot higher than in the other modes. So it's easy to make money. If you've never played the game before, I definitely recommend you just start in New Farmer. Make it easy on yourself. You're going to buy stuff that doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And so you want the money to come in pretty easily so that you can afford to make mistakes. Because whenever you sell something that you just bought, you take a loss, except when it comes to land. Farm Manager is the mode that I'm going to do. This is essentially normal economics. So crop prices and stuff like that is in between these other 2 modes. You start out with some more money, but you don't have any buildings or any equipment, so you can pretty much start up wherever you want. And then the start from scratch mode is similar in that you don't have any equipment or land, but you have less money, and the prices for the stuff that you sell is even lower. I think it doubles or halves at each level. So New Farmer is about twice as much as you get from Farm Manager, and Start from Scratch is about half of Farm Manager. So I'm going to do this one. I don't want it to be too much of a grind, but I also don't want it to be too easy. Now we've got 3 maps. This third one is a carryover from FS17, and it's available as a mod to download. I'm going to go with Felsbrunn, which is the European style map. I've looked at that and Ravenport, and I just like the look and feel of Felsbrunn better. Okay, so here's my guy. Yeah, no, I don't like the vest. I think we'll just leave it like this. All right, these are all the mods, so I got them all selected. I don't know if I'm going to use... I'll probably use the Mahindra. I may or may not use any of the other ones, but I've got them here just in case we want to use them. All right, so let's get started. Takes a second for the game to load. Now in the Farm Manager mode, I have to say that when I first heard about this feature of being able to build your own farm and decide where you want it to go, I'm going to put my time scale down to 1, just so we don't lose time while I'm talking and setting things up here. I was really excited about the possibility. So you can see that where you spawn, there is a large concrete pad. And if you were doing the new player mode or the easy mode, you would start off with your buildings and equipment here already. And then what they do for the other modes is they just remove the buildings and equipment and leave everything else. So you've got a nice flat, paved, mostly paved site that you can build on, which is great. But let's say you want to build your farm in some other area, which is what everybody was so excited about with this new mode, right? So let's say you wanted to build, let's say you wanted to buy Field 14 and build your farm right there. Well, let's go over to the grain mill just because that's close. And let's go over here and take a look. Well, where are we going to put our buildings? You could plop them down in the middle of all this grass, which is not quite flat. The fact that it's not flat is going to cause you to have to pay for terraforming. And then you're also going to end up with just a bunch of buildings in the middle of a grass field because the buildings, there's no concrete pad or anything that you can buy by itself. You can't add roads to it. Now, some people have found one of the tricks you can do is you can go to placeables. You can buy these sheds, which are not terribly expensive. If you put a shed down, it'll put concrete underneath it, and then you can sell it right away, and it'll leave the concrete behind. So some might consider that a good feature. I'm not so sure about that. I think if you get rid of something, it would be nice to return to the original state. But in any case, starting anywhere other than the original starting position is a bit of a challenging proposition. There's a YouTube series from Jim Bob Plays Games, I think his channel is called. And he started with these two fields up here, and he did what I'm talking about. He put down some sheds and then immediately sold them, and he created a big concrete pad up here. He actually did a pretty good job with it, and it's reasonably flat here next to 1 and 2. So that's a good place to start if you really want to do something outside of the normal starting area. And I thought of doing that myself because these fields are relatively large compared to the other ones near the starting area. The problem with this one, though, is that it's quite a long drive to the shop, which is where you have to go to get all your equipment and supplies. And I didn't want to spend that much time driving around. So to make a long story short, I'm going to buy Field 20 so that I can get the starting space. All right, so we'll start by going ahead and buy that. And that's going to use up a considerable portion of the 1.25 million that we start the game with. And then I want to buy a second field as well. Now, a nice convenient choice is to buy Field 19, which is 175 grand. But Field 19 is not very big. And the best way to make more money in this game is to get more land so that you can plant and sell more crops. The more land you have, the more you'll be able to grow and the more you'll have to sell. So I'd like to get started with something relatively big. So Field 13 is, I think, a good choice. That's 300 grand. And, with the experimentation I've done so far, I found that if you spend, you can spend somewhere around $500,000 or $600,000 on land and still have enough money to get set up reasonably well. But let's take a look at what's growing here first. Okay, so Field 13 is actually already ready to harvest. And it's growing oats. And now I wish I hadn't come all the way over here because now I got to run back. I want to go take a look at it just to confirm that it actually is ready to harvest. So that's really good because then we can buy the land, we can get a harvester, and we'll be able to make money on day one. Yeah, it is ready to harvest. So we'll have to do it fairly soon. We don't want the crops to wither. Speaking of that, let's check our options. I'm going to turn off automatic engine start. I'll leave stop and go braking on because I've been having some troubles with the controls to reverse directions. And I'm going to turn all this auto buy stuff off. Everything else I'm going to leave as default. At some point, I'll probably change the plant growth to slow so that we get roughly 1 growth stage per day. But for now, I'll leave it on normal, which is a growth stage every, is it either 8 or 12 hours? I don't recall. But yeah, this is oats. It's ready to harvest and it's fully fertilized. So let's definitely buy field 13. So I'm going to buy that. Okay, so now we got a relatively small field and a relatively big field. The small field, as you'll notice, there's a lot of land around it. So we could always take the option to expand that with a plow at some point. Okay, so now we've got the land. Let's buy some gear. All right, so the first thing we should get is a harvester. But before we look at the harvesters, I want to look at the headers. So if we start with one of the smaller harvesters, these are the headers that you have to choose from. And I'm not going to get this this very small one, the Bison, just because it's an open cab, and I don't think an open cab would be very realistic for a European farm where it's cold and rainy much of the time. So we've got some options here. We've got the Case, which was the standard starting harvester in FS17. That's 145 grand, which I think is too expensive when you compare it to the New Holland and the Rostselmash. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Which are much less expensive. Okay, this one takes the TX32 header, and this one takes the PS500 header. Now this one has a capacity of 4,500 versus 5,600. So the Rostselmash will have to be emptied more frequently, but it has a little bit more power, and it's actually got a slower road speed. Okay, so pluses and minuses for both of those choices. But if we look at the headers, the New Holland header is 4 meters wide, and the Rostselmash header is 5 meters wide, and they're both the same price. So for about 5,000 more, we could get the Rostselmash with the Power Stream header, and we would be able to harvest the field 25% more quickly due to the wider header. But we'll have to tend it more carefully because it's going to need to be emptied more frequently. And it's a little bit slower on the road, which I'm not terribly concerned about. So I think I'm going to go ahead and buy that one. All right, so we'll get the header. Every single time you buy something, it tells you that you can get it at the store. Just in case you forget. Buy, yes. You can see that this game has really been set up to cater to console users on the interface, particularly. And I find that type of a layout is not really ideal for people like me who use a PC, but that's okay. All right, so now we're going to need, I'd like to get 2 tractors at least. Actually, before we buy more equipment, why don't we set up the farmyard? Now, you've got this farmhouse, and it costs $350,000. And it also costs you $150 a day to maintain it. Now, what is it good for? Well, it's only good for one thing, and that is that if you go into the house at night, you can sleep and you can fast forward through the night. That's it. That's the only thing that it gives you. And that's an awful lot of money for what I see as a relatively low amount of functionality. So I think for now, I'm not going to buy the farmhouse, but I will leave space for it because I'll probably want to get it later just for the convenience. So let's get some tractors. I'd like one medium and one small to start with. If you look at the options for medium tractors, I think this Case 7200 Pro series is probably the best bargain. You get 170 horsepower for $98,000. That's versus 125 for the T6, 145 for the Maxim, and it really just goes up from there. Well, the Star is 180. That's not bad. Let's see. This one does have a 3-point linkage at the front, but it can't take a front loader. But you can upgrade this. You can get this up to 250 horsepower, which is pretty nice. Oh, 261, which is really nice. That's a lot of power. So I think I'm going to get this one. This will be my main fieldwork tractor. Just checking the different wheel options here. That would be nice for spraying. Wheel weights. Wide tires and weights. Okay. Well, I'm just going to go with standard for now. Should I get standard or wheel weights? I'm not sure how much of a difference the wheel weights make. Yeah. I'll just go with standard for now. And I'll leave it at the standard amount of horsepower. You can also change the tires if you want Michelin tires versus Trelleborg. The Michelins look a little more beefy and aggressive. I expect that they might not be as good for traveling on the road. So I'm going to leave pretty much everything at default here. So we'll go ahead and pick that one up. And then I'm going to attach that to a trailer. I think the Stroutman is a good choice to start with because you can configure it as a flatbed trailer to move pallets or a few bales if you want to. I'm mainly interested in having this to move pallets in case I want to take pallets to the farm. And then you can expand it up to 12,000 liters. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll also add the option for the cover. Okay. So let's get our harvest started. Because I've got a tipper, I've got a tractor to pull it with, and I've got the harvester. So we can go ahead and start harvesting that field while we work on the rest of this stuff. I'm not very well lined up. Let's try this again. And I can't see behind me from this view. Okay, I can kind of see in the mirror. One thing I'm trying to work out with the track IR is when I turn to the side, the horizon tilts. I'm not sure why that is. It didn't do it with FS17. Okay. What's going on here? Do I need to lower that? I don't know why I can't pick up the header. And there's no folding or unfolding on this one. Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's try to reset that header and see if that helps. So this might end up being a quick video. I might have just knocked it over or something. Okay. Let's reset the combine. This is the right header, right? Nova 33 or 330. And this is the PowerStream 500. Okay, let's reset the combine. And when you reset a vehicle, you lose all your fuel. Or most of your fuel. I'm guessing they probably did that to prevent people from using that as a way to teleport your vehicles around the map. Okay. Now I can do it. I approached it with my keyboard rather than the wheel and pedal. Huh. Okay. Well, that could be a bug. All right. Quickest way to 13. I think we could go either direction. I'll just go over this way. Whoops. I'm going to leave my map turned on. Oh, okay. And of course I'm going in the opposite direction. This happens to me a lot in real life too, so this is nothing new. It'll take me a while to get accustomed to these new maps. Now I think there's a way that I can lower the roller. Yeah, there we go. That way I can see a little better. And we should have our beacon on. Let's signal a turn. Okay. And we'll take this over to the field. I'll hire a worker and we'll start harvesting the field. Then we'll take the tractor and the trailer over there so that we can empty it when necessary. And once we get that going, then we'll start setting up the rest of the stuff that we need. Now, in my Factorio videos, I've never really had to do much editing. But Farming Simulator is a bit of a different animal in that you will often have situations where you've got some fairly repetitive activity to do for a while. So I expect that in this series, I'll probably do more editing where I'll have some cuts or some time lapses to take care of those things so that you all don't get bored watching this. And I can see that my track IR is bugging out a little bit from time to time. I think that might just be because of the window I have next to my PC. If there's too much light hitting the pickup of the track IR, it'll get lost. Okay. Reset my view, see if that helps. Alright, so I'll turn off the beacon since we're here in the field now. Now this particular harvester doesn't need to be unfolded like most of the other ones do. You can just get started. Alright, and I'm going to disable the straw swath. And you can see that there's some animation that goes along with that, whether you want the swath or not. I'm going to disable it. I'm not planning to pick up any straw at this point in the game. And then we'll hire a worker. Okay. And we start harvesting oats. Okay, now we'll switch over to the tractor. And let's get our tipper connected here, if we can. That is weird. You know what? Maybe I'm just not seeing the tooltip except when I use the keyboard. Maybe I actually could attach it, but I just couldn't see the option to do it. Well, here, let's try it. No, I can't. That's really strange. Let's turn off stop and go braking and see if that helps. No difference. But I can do it from the keyboard. Okay. Maybe my control's not mapped. I don't know. I'll have to mess around with that. But for the rest of today's episode, I'll just continue to do that with the keyboard. Okay. Got this beacon on too. I'm noticing that the vehicle sounds are, I think, a lot louder than they were in FS17. That's part of the reason why I'm zooming away, so that we don't get blasted with the audio. In general, though, the audio for 19 is really nice. Okay, and we will get the cover taken off. If I can remember what key that was. There we go. And we'll wait for the harvester to get over here and we'll empty it out on its first pass. I'm sure it probably doesn't really need to be emptied yet, but we'll do it anyway, just so it doesn't stop on us. Now, when you have a hired worker and you empty the combine at the end of a row, it will stop and wait until it's completely empty before it continues on. Not quite lined up there. We'll do a better job next time. Okay. And then we'll get out of the way and let that guy continue his work. We'll turn that off. And while that's taking place, let's go ahead and go back to setting up the farm. All right, so I'm going to get 2 of these sheds for us to store our equipment, and I'm going to put one on either side here. Let's see. I'm going to try to get this lined up as best I can. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to put another one over here. Try to line up this edge. That looks... no. I like these to be as close to directly apart from one another as possible. Maybe it needs to be here to keep this path open. I think that'll give us enough room. Okay, that looks good. We will also need a silo to store our harvest. The small silo has 100,000 capacity, and you get 200,000 with the large one. I think the small one might be a little too small. And also, this place is really this place is really meant for the silo, but it's not quite wide enough. Whereas if you get the large silo, it fits in here pretty well. Let me come to the other side. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try to do, is center this thing just like that, so we can dump into it on the far side and unload on the near side. That looks good. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, so now I can go to my silo, so I can teleport back to the farm fairly quickly. All right, so we can load into a tipper on this side, and we can load into the silo on this side. This concrete did overlap on the grass a little bit, but I think that still looks pretty good. Okay, now I also would like to have a workshop, so we can do modifications to the vehicle. And I think I'll put that right over here. I'm going to try to get it as close to the shed as possible and still leave space for the house. Okay. Oh, and let's get a power washer too, so that we can clean our tractors when they get dirty. And let's see, where should we put that? Yeah, let's put that right next to the workshop. Or actually, maybe I should put it on this side of the shed. Yeah, I think I'll put it over here instead, because this will be easy to drive up to and drive out without having to reverse. There we go. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. All right, let's see how our harvest is doing. All right, we're about half full, so I think, you know, right now the pipe is on the fruit side, and I do have crop destruction turned on, so I don't want to drive through the crop to unload, so we'll wait till this turns around again, and then we'll get it unloaded. I'm going to recenter my view again here. So I'll just come down towards this end of the field and get turned around, and we'll get ready to empty it. And we'll empty while the harvester continues to move forward. So to do that, I'm going to set my cruise control to 10 kph. Now, because this map is European, I try to use the local units of whatever the map is that I'm playing on, just for realism. So that's why in this map I'm using euro for the currency, and I'm using kilometers per hour for the speed units. If we were on an American map, I'd use dollars and miles. And then I think there's also an option to use, well, I think that's the default. The default option, I think, is to use hectares instead of acres. Yeah, that's already set. That doesn't see a lot of use anyway, but it's already set to go well with a European map. Okay, so let's get lined up here. And then once we get alongside, we'll turn on the cruise control. And then we can drive alongside and empty as it's continuing to harvest the crop. Need a little more space here. And I don't have my glance mod, which usually tells me when the harvester is empty, but you can tell when the harvester empties because it starts doing that in spurts. So that means that the tank is empty. All right. And we'll be able to get another load, but before we close today, let's drive over to the farm. And let's put this in our new silo. That way we can see how things are looking. Make sure that we have a nice clean approach and enough space to drive around. If we don't, that'll be unfortunate because the only option is to sell it for a 50% loss and then replace it again. I think they really need to give us an undo option on this stuff, but yeah, sorry about that. It's my track IR freaking out again. Okay, so we just pull over the grate. We hit the unload, which I think I mapped to this button. No, this button. Nope. Okay. Let's try 6 and 4. Nope. Okay. I'll have to do it with the keyboard. Like I said, I'm just getting started with this version of the game, and the controls are not behaving the same way that they did in FS17. And in 17, I pretty much used the default configuration. You know, if you plug in your SciTech wheel and panel and turn on the game, the configuration that it starts with is pretty good, and I rarely made any changes to it. But obviously things are different with this version of the game, and I'm going to have to figure out what these controls are so I can get it set up properly. All right. So we'll wait here. And we're over time. I think that's going to be about it for today. I'm going to let this harvest continue to run. We can see here that the field's going to need to be plowed. So a plow is going to have to be one of the things that we buy. We also need to get our next tractor. And the other thing that I just noticed is that field 20 is planted with sugar beets. which unfortunately requires special equipment to harvest. And I don't think that I want to buy that equipment because I'm not planning to do sugar beets on a regular basis. So I think we'll either just plow it under and start with a new crop. I think that field needs to be plowed too. Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. It doesn't need plowing. And it doesn't need lime. Okay. Yeah, so I think I'll probably just turn this crop under and plant something new on top of it. But we'll get into that in the next episode. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. If you have any feedback, please let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.